welcome to the first lesson on William Butler Yeats. Uh, just for a quick background, Yeats was born on June 13th in the year 1865 in Dublin, Ireland, and he died on January 28th in the year 1939. In France, he was an Irish poet, a prose writer, and a drama writer, of course. And he was one of the greatest English language poets of the 20th century because he received the Nobel Prize in 1923. Now, when we say greatest poet of that time, it doesn't mean that all of us may see him as the greatest poet of that time, but the thing is that, for example, he won the Nobel Prize, right? So that kind of makes a difference to how people would see him. But for me, for example, I love the work of Hughes, and I think Ted Hughes was one of the greatest poets of all time. So I think it's subjective, very highly subjective. Also, one more thing is that yes, we do tend to say William Butler Yeats now, but some texts and stuff suggest that back then people would call his family name Yeats and not Yeats. His father, John Butler Yeats, was a barrister who eventually became a portrait painter, and his mother, who was formerly known as Susan, was the daughter of a prosperous merchant in Sligo in the Western Island. And though through both parents, he was supposed to be identified as an Anglo-Irish Protestant. Because his family had like certain really religious roots, like they have been mentioned in texts and history and stuff like that, like a sacred family tree of sorts, or whatever you would want to call that. But he was not really able to, his whole thing about being a Protestant would have made him a very powerful minority among Ireland's predominantly Roman Catholic population, but he could not fully identify with them internally, and so he was separated from both the historical traditions available to him in Ireland, from the Roman Catholics, because he questioned faith internally, not externally, not out loud, anything like that. But in his poems, you can see the conflict arising because he was somebody who would think. So, for peace of mind or for peace of life or whatever, sure, he chose a label, but internally, you can see in his poetry that he kept asking questions. And then with the Protestants, the thing was that he felt repelled by their concern for material success. So because he asked questions and stuff like that, he had things like, okay, fine, sure, like they're saying do this, do that, blah blah blah, but then why are they having elections in the church? So things like that. So he was somebody who would, yes, he did not want war, and you can see that also in his poetry, that he was a man of peace. But at the same time, he raised questions, because now when I had initially thought of doing this lesson, I had thought that I will start with a quote by Yeats, and that quote is something that describe that describes Yeats aptly. The world is full of magical things patiently waiting for your senses to grow sharper. Now, for someone who believes in magic like that, um, it was it was almost impossible for him to ground himself in that kind of certainty where he would be like, no, but this is the wrong person and this is the right person. Because even the people that the society was saying are right people, he could see they had their flaws. So he was aware of his flaws, sure, but he could also see other people's flaws. Like with Hughes, of course, see this you see this element of pride, right? Where he says that where he says something on the lines of how healing benevolence was once a privilege of gods, and now it's something that writers like him have. But Yeats hasn't claimed that power himself. He has just said that he has just said that the world is full of magical things patiently waiting for your senses to grow sharper. And so his close confidence, his way of life, that kind of showed that he couldn't really fully settle in with both the school of thoughts that were put forth to him. Neither the Catholics nor the Protestants, because he was always asking questions and he was always like, but the world's full of magical things patiently waiting for my senses to grow sharper and their senses to grow sharper. So, like, why are we doing this? Bad people, good people, because the good people are also doing bad things. And and yeah, he also felt that especially where he lived, and the Catholics as well as the Protestants, he felt like the surviving customs, beliefs, whatever you would say, in theory or in their philosophy, felt more pagan than Christian. If one were to ponder upon them, especially how they were being put in to the way of life, it felt like they're more pagan than Christian. So that's why. For being a man who always said that war is futile and this and that, he did not really wage anything against people like that. But at the same time, he did, and you can see in his work that he did often, raise questions or highlighted conflict, and also sometimes was able to fathom that conflict in a lot of places, even when he's talking about things like love in The Adam's Curse. This was just the first lesson on Yeats. If you like this video, don't forget to give me a thumbs up as well as subscribe to my YouTube channel. And with this first lesson, I would just give you guys a small task to just help understand Yeats better before you start reading him. So actually, I'll just add like a document in the description. You guys can go attempt those questions, think on those lines, and see you tomorrow with another lesson.